All right, so on part G, we're wanting to know the time interval. Marcus was 30 yards. So Marcus is going to be my purple line here. So from the time interval, see from 70 to 100, that's 30 yards. So this is when he's sitting at 30 yards away from 14 to 16 seconds. And then it asks at the same time, how far away is Miguel? So at the same time, Miguel is 100 minus 60, which is 40 yards away. So 14 to 16 for the time interval, and Miguel is 40 yards away from the north goal line. So from the south goal line to the north goal line, the boys spend blank percent of their time running and blank percent of their time doing push-ups. Okay, their whole entire time is 20 seconds. So let's see how many seconds they spend running. So they spend 4, plus 2 is 6, plus 4 is 10, plus 4 is 14. So 14 out of 20 is the time that they spent running. If you'll take your calculator and divide 20 into 14, so that's going to be 0.7. If you move your decimal 2 places to the right, that's 70%. So they spend 70% of their time running, which means they spend 30% of their time doing push-ups. Okay, looking at the next section, we are graphing our absolute value functions. So on this first function, we have 2/3 times the absolute value of x minus 3 minus 5. My vertex point, the x value will come here. Remember, it's x minus h, so the x value has to be the opposite. And this is going to be the y value of my vertex point, and it stays the same. So let's go over here, and we're going to plot 3 and -5. Now use your 2/3 and go up 2 and to the right 3, up 2 to the right 3, and then since we have a line of reflection, we're going to go up 2 and to the left 3, up 2 and to the left 3. And this is what our graph is going to look like. Remember, your axis of symmetry is the vertical line that goes through the vertex point, creating a mirror image. So looking at this, the axis of symmetry is going to be x equals, because it's a vertical line, and it's going to go through 3 on the y-axis. So x equals 3 is the axis of symmetry. Your domain, since it goes to the right and to the left, is all real numbers. Your range is going to start here at -5 and go up. So that's y is greater than or equal to -5. Since the vertex is the lowest point on the graph, it's a minimum value. Now looking at the next one, we have f of x equals -2 times the absolute value of x plus 1. The vertex, pull the x, and then your y is 0. So go over here to -1 and 0 and plot your point. Now since your slope, or your fake slope, not your real slope, is -2, we're going to go down 2, right 1, down 2, right 1. And then we're going to reflect it down 2, left 1, down 2, left 1. Now the axis of symmetry is the vertical line that goes through the center, and so that creates a mirror image on both sides. So here the axis of symmetry is x equals -1. The domain is all real numbers. Your range is going to start here at y, and it's going to go down less than or equal to 0. Since the vertex point is the highest point on the graph, that's going to be your maximum value. Okay, looking at number 1, we have -8 times the absolute value of n over 4 equals -12. So to solve, the first thing you want to do is divide both sides by -8. Okay, if you will simplify this, 4 will go into 12 3 times, and 4 will go into 8 2 times. A negative over a negative is a positive. Now we know that there are two numbers that will give us the absolute value of 3/2. 3/2 and -3/2. So I'm going to take my n over 4 and set it equal to 3/2. And I'm going to take my n over 4 and set it equal to -3/2. So to solve, I'll multiply both sides by 4, and I'll get n is equal to 2 into 2 and 2 into 4. 2 times 3 is 6. Here I'll multiply both sides by 4. 2 into 2 and 2 into 4 give me -3 times 2, which is -6. So n is equal to -6 and +6. Okay, for number 2, I've got the absolute value of -5k plus 3 is 33. Before you can solve for anything, you have to get rid of everything with the absolute value. So I've got to move that +3 to the other side by subtracting 3. Now there are two numbers I can take the absolute value of that will give me 30. 30 and -30. So I'll set -5k equal to 30 and -30. And then I'll divide both sides by -5. So k is equal to -6 and +6. Okay. Looking at number 3, I've got -7 minus the absolute value of x plus 6 equals -12. The first thing that I want to do is get rid of my constant term by adding 7 to both sides. I have the negative absolute value of x plus 6 equals -5. Now to get rid of that negative, just divide and it'll go away. We'll get +5. So there are two numbers I can take the absolute value of to get 5 and -5. So we'll take x plus 6 and set it equal to 5. And we'll take x plus 6 and set it equal to -5. So subtract 6 from both sides. And we'll get -1 and -11. For number 4, let's add 4 to both sides. And then we'll divide both sides by 9. So the two numbers we can take the absolute value of to get 4 is 4 and -4. So we'll multiply both sides by 2, and that'll give me b equals 8 and b equals -8. So b equals -8 and 8. Okay. So that's 1 through 4. All right, now let me get another piece of paper. For number 5, we'll have 4 times the absolute value of m plus 3 minus 3 equals -3. So let's add 3 to both sides and divide by 4. All right, now there's only one number we can take the absolute value of to get 0, and that's 0, because there's not going to be a positive and a negative situation here. So you just have one equation to solve this time, and you'll get m equals -3. Okay, for number 6, we have 4 plus the absolute value of x over 6 equals 5. Subtract 4 from both sides, and we'll get x over 6 is equal to 1. Now there's two numbers that we can take the absolute value of to get 1. That's 1 and -1. So x over 6 equals 1, and x over 6 equals -1. Multiply both sides to get 6 and -6. So x equals -6 and 6. Okay. So on the next one, number 7, we have -10 times the absolute value. Okay, now let's get everything away from our absolute value. We'll subtract 1 from both sides. This is a positive 10, not a negative 10. And then we'll divide both sides by 10. So there's two numbers we can take the absolute value of that will give us 3. That's 3 and negative 3. So take negative 6 plus 9p and set it equal to 3. And also set it equal to negative 3. So here we're going to add 6 to both sides and divide by 9. Okay, now here we'll add 6 to both sides and divide by 9. On this one, do not divide this out because this is 3/9 or 1/3, which is a repeating 3. Just reduce. That's all you got to do. 3 into 3 and 3 into 9. So you'll get P is 1/3 and 1. All right, on number 8, we've got the absolute value of 5x minus 7 minus 3 equals 9. Let's add 3 to both sides. Okay, and this is going to be our function. Now there's two numbers we can take the absolute value of to get 12. 12 and negative 12. So take 5x minus 7 and set it equal to 12. And 5x minus 7 equals negative 12. So add 7 to both sides, and you'll get 5x is 19. So x is 19/5. Add 7 over here, and divide by 5, and x equals negative 1. Now on the last one, we have 9 minus 8 times the absolute value equals 25. Now first, we need to subtract 9 from both sides. That'll give me negative 8, absolute value, and 16. Divide both sides by negative 8. And you have the absolute value is equal to a negative number. Absolute value cannot equal a negative number, so this has no solution. So remember, when you're solving an absolute value equation, your job is to always get rid of whatever's outside the absolute value symbol first. Make all of the outside stuff go away. Once you get down to your absolute value by itself equals a number, that number has got to be positive. And then, whatever this is, you'll set the inside equal to the positive and the negative of this number. And that will give you your two absolute value numbers. The only time you don't do 2 is if your absolute value equals 0, because you can't have an opposite for 0. And so also, like on number 9, when you get absolute value all by itself, absolute value can't equal a negative, because when I plug in R, I can plug in a positive, a negative, or a 0. But when I take the absolute value, I will get either 0 or positive. I will never get a negative value. So that's when you're going to have no solution.